It's my honor to be up here and able to welcome all of you to his celebration. And like the old song, country song, we're ready to get this party started, turn this cornfield into a party, or at least right here beside the cornfield. So on behalf of the Catawba County Soil and Water Conservation District and staff, I'd like to welcome all of you to the 2017 North Carolina State Conservation Farm Family Celebration at Hunsucker Farms. Each year, the Catawba County, or the Catawba Soil and Water Conservation District recognizes a farmer and his family because farming is a family operation. I mean, whether Kathy's out here in the fields helping Dan or not, she has to put up with him. She's put up with him all her life. And being a farm wife myself, I was about ready to divorce my husband on Sunday. So, you know, it is a good, time to celebrate family. And we want to recognize them for their conservation efforts that they have put forth. I was talking to Dan, just asking him a little bit about his dad. Was he involved in conservation practices? And actually, I found out his dad was one of the major players in soil and water conservation and getting things started here in Catawba County. This year, Dan Hunsucker won the Catawba County Soil and Water Conservation District's Family Farm Award. In his continued conservation efforts and achievements in his stewardship of the land. So he has put in a lot of environmental practices that, you, as a farmer, sometimes farmers get the bad rap. They're hurting the land or things like that. I don't know why people would even think that, because the land, the animals is our life, or is the life of a farmer. So, Dan has proven to be a leader in the agricultural community and in Catawba County in general. If you'll look at your programs, you can see all the things that he's involved in. And like I said, being a farmer and being involved in all that stuff, Kathy, I feel for you. And the family, I know they've had to suffer and sacrifice a lot. So, but Dan, back in February of this year, he received at our education banquet, the Catawba County was recognized as Catawba County's farm family. Then he went on to be recognized as the North Carolina Association of Conservation Districts for Area 2. He won that. Then he also won the Mountain Region Conservation Farm Family. So today we are here to honor his family for the efforts that they've put forth through conservation and the practices that they've done on their farm. And so I hope later on today everyone will get to see that. We'd also like to thank some of our sponsors for helping us put this event on. And some of the partners are on the back of your program. But I would like to, our core partnership with the North Carolina Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts, the North Carolina Department of Ag Division of Soil and Water, the Catawba Soil and Water Conservation District. Thank North Carolina Grange for their monetary award, North Carolina Farm Credit for providing our lunch today. We'd like to thank Benfield Grading, James River and John Deere, Divine Farms, Six Tires, and Jim Yunt. So thank you, sponsors, for all that. And our vendors who has made this possible too is North Carolina Farm Bureau, Boxcar Grill, Down East Tent Rentals, ASR Graphics, A-Sign Company, and Master Porta John. So thank all of y'all for that as well, if any of you are here. And now I would like to introduce our, where is he? The Catawba County Board Chair for Commissioners, Randy Eisenhower. Oh, there he is.
Welcome to Catawba County. For those of you who are not from Catawba County, every day is just like today. Blue skies, soft breezes. It's a wonderful place. I'm honored to be here for many reasons. Our family's had a great history with the Hunsucker family. My father, who is here, and Dewey were friends and contemporaries. I'm sure we'd have a lot of stories. I'm honored to serve on the Catawba County Board of Commissioners with Dan. Vice Chair Barbara Beatty is here with us also. As you can see, Dan has a long history of public service, both here in Catawba County and on the state level. And through our association, I've been fortunate enough to be able to call him a good friend, and I appreciate that. One thing that's always impressed me with Dan, whether it's in casual conversation or whether it's when we're working through a county issue, for many situations he'll say, you know, Dad told me in this situation, or Mom told me in this situation. How special it is for him to have that wisdom that's been passed on from generation to generation, which continues to guide him and has helped guide us. Although I know it sometimes he'll say, well, Dad and I were on the farm and we didn't really agree on this, but this was his advice to me. And the history of Hunsucker Farms is much like the history and heritage of Catawba County. Let me show you this. This is our county seal. It has 4 quadrants. Each of the quadrants has a symbol which recognizes something that's been very special and a part of Catawba County's heritage. And we celebrate and recognize at least 3 of the 4 of them today. One is the cow for agriculture. I'm told this is a Jersey cow. Dan has often said he is a recovering dairy farmer, correct? Okay. The other is the torch, or the light of education. And I know that a lot of this recognition for the conservation is for the education component that goes with conservation. And Dan has been, and his family, a great supporter of education in public schools here in Catawba County. And we're both Pack fans too, so both Wolfpackers. And lastly, the cross, the faith. I know Dan and his family's faith in God has sustained and guided him throughout his life. And he continues to have that great commitment to his Lord and his Savior, and we appreciate that, and that is such a great example also. So, welcome to Catawba County. We appreciate this opportunity, and Dan and Kathy and your family, thank you, congratulations, and we are so proud of what you bring to our county. Thank you.
Greetings. All right, that was good. All right. My name is Scott Johnson. I am the senior pastor at St. John's Lutheran Church. So I've been, let's see, I'm older than you too, aren't I? Yeah, so I've been Dan's superior at St. John's for 21 and a half years. It's interesting, St. John's will be celebrating its anniversary, 219th anniversary this Sunday. In the year 1798, the church just up St. John's Church Road was formed, and the Hunsuckers were part of that beginning of St. John's. So the Hunsuckers and St. John's have been together for a long time, so I'm really glad to be able to be here and do the invocation.
Thank you. I tell you, I feel special up here today, but not for the reason you think. I'm the only fool standing up here that's wearing a tie out here today. I thought, my God, the commissioner's got to be wearing a tie. So my wife is going to hear about this when I get home, but he does have a coat on, so I'll give him that. But it's really a pleasure for us to be here, and this is truly a special event. I mean, this is what holds the earth together. This is what we're here to conserve and to promote, and this is about as wholesome as it comes. This is one of the places, as I tell my wife, this is where I feel closest to the Lord. It's when I'm out here doing these kind of things, and it's something that's goes rich history in my family. I kind of whisper this, but I'm from the southern end of Orange County, Chapel Hill, and I already heard a Wolfpack call out here, but I'm watching the Ram this afternoon, taking him to the game in the morning. So, but I'm an NC State alum, so I've got them all covered. But the North Carolina Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts is proud of the work done by the 96 conservation districts in our great state. We're equally proud to appreciate the cooperation by the private landowners and land users who participate in the many conservation opportunities provided by our conservation districts. We're extremely grateful to be here today to recognize Hunsucker Farms for their conservation efforts and their willingness to participate in this program of our association. We also thank the Catawba Soil and Water Conservation for their work with Mr. Hunsucker and the other producers here in Catawba County. An event of this size takes a lot of coordination and planning, and we thank all those who assisted and contributed. The Conservation Family Program has been greatly strengthened in recent years through the assistance of our partner, the North Carolina State Grange. This partnership has allowed the program to grow in many ways. On behalf of the North Carolina Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts, I thank Mr. Jimmy Gentry, State Grange President, for the Grange's contributions and participation. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Gentry and ask him to come give us some words from the State Grange.
Thank you, Chris. I want all of you to know I feel good about being here today. I feel safe, secure. If I get sick, the EMS is here with the ambulance. I feel protected because the sheriff's here. Where's the sheriff? Thank you for being here, Sheriff. Yeah, if I need to be prayed over, the preacher's here. So I feel good today. It is indeed an honor and a privilege for the North Carolina State Grange to be able to sponsor this program. We've done it for several years now, and it's just always been a great partnership between the Grange and the Conservation Network. We work with a lot of great people, and I enjoy coming to events like this because I know I'm going to encounter a lot of good folks, and usually it involves some good food as well. But we very much believe in soil conservation, and just as many other agricultural groups do in this state. And by the way, we have a good partnership of agricultural groups in the state that work together well here too. We're very fortunate here in North Carolina. So to the Soil and Water Conservation Group, thank you for letting us sponsor this event, and I'm looking forward to a great day, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry. It's with great pleasure that I get to introduce our next speaker. Commissioner Steve Troxler is well known as a friend of agriculture. He is also known and appreciated as a friend of conservation and the North Carolina Conservation Districts. We are proud to claim the fact that he has served as a Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor. His commitment to agriculture and conservation has made great impacts for this valuable part of our heritage and future. On behalf of the North Carolina Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts, Commissioner, I thank you for your commitment to North Carolina agriculture and for your support of conservation and the North Carolina Conservation Districts. It is my sincere pleasure to introduce Commissioner Steve Troxler.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. And Chris, I haven't lost all of my common sense since I went to Raleigh to work, but you may look at me and say, well, you know, what's that fool doing standing up there with a coat on as warm as it is today? But this is part of my Raleigh camouflage that I normally wear on a daily basis. But it is so good to be out in the country on a farm. I feel like I spend half of my life looking at the rear bumper of a vehicle in front of me, making the commute from my farm to Raleigh or beyond every day. So this is a wonderful occasion. I try to never miss one of these celebrations for a number of reasons. Number one, as a farmer, I know the commitment that it takes from the farm family to have a farm like this and to be recognized as the Conservation Farm Family of the Year. And it's not a commitment today, this month, this year. This is a lifelong commitment. They've made this commitment to keep this farm operating as a farm and to make sure that the natural resources are available for the future. If we're going to be successful in agriculture in the future, there's about 4 things that we're going to have to do that. The first is the human resources, the family that's on the farm that loves what they do and perseveres through every kind of predicament that could be imagined on a yearly basis. But we've got to have these natural resources. Unproductive land means the family won't be on the farm. Unproductive land means that we won't meet the food needs of a hungry world in the future when they say we've got to have 70 to 100% more food by the year 2050. The natural resources have got to be there, and they've got to be resources that will produce good crops. We've got to have agricultural research. We've been fortunate here in North Carolina to have 2 great land-grant universities in NC State and NC State University that have continuously been providing that research so that one farmer now feeds 155 people. That is an amazing, amazing thing that has happened. If you look back even 100 years ago and the productivity levels that we had on farms, we were pretty much subsistence farmers. We had a few crops and some livestock that let us get a little money laid aside, and we were able to educate our children to an extent. But we today feed 155 people, and some of the productive farms probably do even more than that. That's the average. So we've got to have that. And we've got to have good policy. And good policy starts at the lowest levels of government, and it moves upward even to Washington, D.C., where good policy seems to be hard to come by these days. But all of those put together will ensure the success of agriculture. And, you know, even beyond the commitment that Dan and Kathy made to the farm and the conservation efforts they put in here, they've also been involved in leadership. Dan and I have been friends for a long, long time. I know his service to Catawba County as a county commissioner. I know his service in agricultural leadership roles. So they've not only made the sacrifice here on the farm, but they have made that sacrifice in other places. And Kathy, I know what you go through, and my wife understands, believe me, with a meeting a day, a meeting a night, weekend. So that sacrifice has been made too. I feel confident about the future culture in North Carolina. I think we're going through some exciting times and a transition in agriculture in North Carolina, but we are trying to make sure that that future is bright. I have 5 grandkids. I don't know whether any of them will ever come back to the farm, but the one thing that I do know is they've got to eat. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from here today, is something I say every time I speak or every interview that I do, and I want you to remember that hungry people are mean people. I have seen it in other parts of the world where food is hard to come by, and people will go to very extreme circumstances to be able to feed their kids, their grandkids, their parents. So we've been lucky, but we've been good in the United States too. We've always had this abundant food supply that is affordable, and that's got to be the goal for the future, that we continue on this path of agriculture and agribusiness that has built this state. It has built this country. It's the leading industry in this state by a long shot, and we've got to make sure that is the goal that we have for the future. With farm families like the Hunsuckers that we have here, there is no question in my mind that that's going to happen. And it takes partnerships to get all this done. I'm so thankful that we had the farm groups in North Carolina that work together. They partner with us at the department, and even to get this farm family, Conservation Farm Family of the Year award, I know that you've had many, many partners. The Conservation District here, State Conservation Districts, our Soil and Water Division. So we concentrate on this. One of the very things that I know that has got to happen in this state is we have got to preserve this farmland. We're losing farmland still at an alarming rate. DeWitt Hardy is here today that heads up our Farmland Preservation Trust Fund. And I appreciate the effort that he is putting into it, but there's got to be a mindset change in North Carolina and in the nation. We have got to revere farmland, and we have got to revere farmers. Unless we change that mindset, then we might get in trouble with our food supply over time. I'm not talking about tomorrow or next year, but into the future, we've got to make that mindset change, and we've also got to let the public know that that food does not grow on those grocery shelves. When there's 2% of us that are the preachers, and there's 98% that are the congregation, they need a lot of preaching too, and you can help us with that. So I hope that is the message that you will take away today. I can't say enough thanks to Dan and Kathy and the family for their commitment to agriculture and to conserving these natural resources that are so important to us. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Commissioner Troxler, for your comments, and especially for being here today. It's important. It's very much appreciated by us all. At this time, I'd like to invite Dan and Mr. Jimmy Gentry up for the presentation of the award, please. On behalf of the North Carolina Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts, it is our honor to present this plaque. Dan, I'm going to read this for you. But really, it's for your belief in agriculture, your belief in conservation, and your belief in your community. It's very, very important to us. North Carolina's outstanding conservation farm family, presented to Hunsucker Farms for outstanding stewardship of the state's natural resources through conservation, education, and implementation of best management conservation practices by North Carolina Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. Thank you very much.
Not responsible for broken cameras.
All right, man. Mr. Jimmy Gentry has that. That's right. That's right.
And it's my privilege to present the check. I don't know which one to hand the check to.
Yeah, you do.
You know.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dan.
Is this loud enough? Can everybody hear in the back? You probably don't want to hear, but this is about the most humbling day I've ever had in my life. When Susie was up talking about, as we went through this process, and Dan won the county award and Dan won the district award and this and that, it's not just Dan. It's me, it's my wife Kathy, John, Amanda, Brad that's in Texas now, and my parents that went before me, and all the people that worked so hard to give me the possibility to do what I do. And I have to recognize Terry McNeil. He's been with us 28 years. Stand up, Terry, so everybody can see you. So, when we were in the dairy business, Terry milked for us for 19 years. And before he came, we'd have to get up and look out the barn and see if somebody was at the barn every morning to milk. But you could set your clock by Terry. He was there every day, and he had to be deathly sick not to be here. We had another man work for us for 35 years, Marvin Barber. I thought maybe he could be here today, but I haven't seen him. Joe Simmons, Vance Moose, Cloverdale Farms, they help us out when we get in a bind, and sometimes that's more often than I like to. But you know, you just have to recognize the people that got you where you are. And no man is an island, and I'm just so proud of my heritage, and so proud to have all of you here today. I know the staff from the county is glad to get out of the office, and they said, you know, the old saying is, behind every successful man, there's a good woman. Well, that's true, and I have to say that she actually came over and washed the barn out before we got married because I wanted to see what I was going to smell like when I came in at night. And so that's tough, you know. That's tough. And behind every good woman, you got to have some good lawyers, and they're all up front here this morning. And I appreciate them being here more than you know. I'm not on the clock, right? Just, okay. Just checking. In all seriousness, Wayne Bach and his crew did so much for us in estate planning, and anybody that's in agriculture said, well, your family knows all about planning ahead for the next generation and trying to pass on what prior generations have worked for. And I can't, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Phyllis Yunt. She keeps the books for us. Phyllis, raise your hand so everybody can see. And Jim Price and Casey that are my accountants, because I would be lost without them. But how we got here, just real briefly, I want to tell you, the first Hunsuckers came here in 1737 in Pennsylvania. And Johannes Hunsucker, as he was spelled at that time, came down here in 1748. Hold up, let me back up. I'm sorry, I had my dates wrong. He came here from Germany in 1748 on the ship Two Brothers and settled in Pennsylvania, eventually accumulating 1,200 acres. One of his sons, Johann Theobald Hunsucker, came to North Carolina in 1773 and settled on Lyle Creek, just over here behind Lyle Creek Elementary School. He and his wife Susanna had 15 children. Now, but they said when they divided up the property and made the deeds to the kids that they had 4 different spellings of Hunsucker. At that time it was Hunsucker with a T, and then Hunsucker and Hunsucker. So that's some of the spellings at that time. And then Johann had William Nelson Hunsucker, who was my great-grandfather, is in this picture over here, had 9 children. One of his children was Garland, my dad's father, and I have with me today my aunt Jeanette. She's one of those siblings. That's one of Garland's daughters that grew up over here in the house that we live in, actually behind us. Some people say I'm tight, but I think I'm frugal. So we just moved into my grandmother's house when we got married, and it worked out pretty well. Let's see, and Garland started this farm in 1926, and it basically stopped at this fence row and this area right down here, and almost lost it in the Depression. But we're fortunate enough to hang on to it. My dad came back from the war, World War II, and continued the farm. His father died at the age of 58, and my dad was kind of thrust into that role at an early age. Of course, all the people of that generation was thrust into adulthood at an early age. Going through the Depression, it had a marked effect on them. And as one of my dad's favorite sayings to the kids when they left the house, he'd say, "Work hard and save your money." And that's what he believed in. He saved everything. We kept everything, didn't we? At least that's what I'm told. And then I came along. Dad said he told Mom he wanted to have 14 children. Well, it took them 8 years to get me. And so I don't know whether they decided to quit while they were ahead or they didn't think they could do any better. I don't know. But it's been a good life. And my mother's farm is just over here off Highway 16. It's been in the family since 1801. Real proud of that. That's 5 generations on that farm. All my ancestors are actually buried over here at St. John's Church. Some of the old graves are written in German, actually. And we're just all blessed, all of us, to be born in this country. If you think, what if that German didn't come over here and stayed in Germany? I'd have never been here. You'd never been here. And so it gives me goosebumps to think of the people that came and started and worked hard and the things they went through to get us where we are today, really. Like was said earlier, the home farm was mostly subsistence farming. We had dairy cows, corn, wheat, cotton, sweet potatoes, hogs, and chickens. And now it's mostly beef cattle with some dairy replacement heifers, and we raise corn, soybeans, wheat, and hay. Let's see, my father, I told you about him coming back from the war. I don't want to forget anything, but you can see some of the buildings in the pictures over here. One of the buildings is the first dairy barn he had, and he milked 2 cows at a time in there. And that was probably in the late 40s, something like that. And I was wondering why they took a picture of the meter boxes on the outside of the barn, and then it struck me they were just happy that they had electricity out there. You know, we take it for granted, but that was something to be proud of, I guess. The new barn was built in 1964, and we grew the dairy to 150 cows by 1983 when I came back from NC State. And we milked cows until 2010. My dad died in 2007, and wanted to spend more time with my mother. Her health was getting bad, so we sold the dairy cows in 2010. So now I just work 6.5 days a week. My mother worked for Catawba County for over 50 years, starting out in the tax department and then moving up to mapping. And they both are the most hardworking people I believe I've ever seen. They didn't stop. They did something all the time. My mother was a Sunday school teacher for 50 years and kept the books for the farm, and she canned and did a little bit of whatever had to be done, you know. I was blessed to work with my father for over 30 years. And our conservation efforts, I'll get to that part now, actually started, I guess, back in the 30s and 40s when they started terracing the fields to carry the water out slowly from the fields where it wouldn't erode. In the 70s came strip cropping and grass waterways. On this farm behind you, that's where we used to have strips, and we would alternate crops between, you know, from one and the other. We'd have corn in one and soybeans in the other, and then it would alternate next year. Excuse me. And the grass waterways were put there to catch any sedimentation that may run off. Then came livestock exclusion from the streams, feed pads and livestock trails that we put in to reduce erosion from high traffic areas. And we put in 17 acres of conservation easement on the farm in the Bandy's area to not only exclude the cattle from the streams, but they also lowered the stream banks so that when the waters come up, they have a place to spread out and then go back slowly in order to keep from cutting out such a deep creek channel. We do some rotational grazing and have done some intensive grazing. And a reporter asked me once, he said, what's one word that describes Dan Hunsucker? And I thought, my goodness. I thought back at what my parents had taught me and what I learned in Boy Scouts, and we got 2 of my old Boy Scouts here with me today, Ken and Lee. But the word came to me as a steward. And we're all stewards of whatever God blesses us with, whether it's land or cattle or money we work for or the family we have or the life that we live. Every breath and every heartbeat is a blessing, and we need to make the most of our lives, whatever we do. The things we do should honor those who came before us and inspire and encourage those who are coming after us. I remember my mother telling me from church one time, she said, you're an example to somebody whether you know it or not, whether it's good or bad. And that always kind of stuck in my mind because I never really thought about it. But it kind of goes back to a Randy Travis song. It's not what we take when we leave this world behind us, it's what we leave behind us when we're gone. And that's part of the conservation efforts and part of the things that I try to do for my family. The main thing in my life is make sure I see them all in heaven when I leave here. So the Conservation Family Award is just that. It's a family award. And I want to thank my family and all those who've gone before us and those who've worked with us over all these years to make it possible. And thank all of you for being here today. We're going to eat lunch shortly. I don't sing and I don't dance, only in the combine. That's the only place I sing. And I do quite well, if I have to say so myself. But we're going to eat, and then we're going to take the wagons and take a little tour over here and see some of the grass waterways and some of the things that we've done. And y'all are welcome to stay as long as you want to. Thank you.